Kelly Show. Let's have some fun on a Wednesday, on a hump day. And here's what we have tonight. I'm excited because we got some juicy goodies. Well, we've got a man running for governor. That's important. He's running for governor in Pennsylvania. He's coming up about 30 minutes from now. That's important. Okay, I want him to win governor. Okay, well, why would I care about the governor of Pennsylvania? He's doing something when it comes to the FBI you should be aware of because it is what is necessary going forward. So we'll talk to him in a few. We have Joe Biden being despicable, predictably, in Florida. We have, oh, look at that, a man slashed inside a Times Square subway station.
The president's efforts have made progress.
That's no big surprise there. We have New York City public school graduates. They're not ready for college.
We have a brand. New York has a brand.
You most certainly do. Gun sales are through the roof. The new Scooby-Doo Velma is a lesbian. And China is in possession of the critical information of our poll workers. All that and so much more coming up tonight on the world-famous Jesse Kelly Show. Before we get to any of that, I do want to deal with this really quickly here. Because the big news of the day is OPEC. OPEC. Now remember, I'm not going to go into all the details of it, mainly because I would screw something up. But OPEC, it's not one country. OPEC is 13 countries, all right? What do? They produce oil. They're oil-producing nations. They put it out to the world. Now, we previously have gotten ourselves in a lot of trouble in this nation under Jimmy Carter when we decided we were going to be too reliant on OPEC. Now, just stay with me here because this is going to apply to you 100%. Joe Biden got into office. And this is one of the reasons I tell you it doesn't matter which Democrat gets elected. It's going to be a disaster because the official stance of the Democratic Party won't allow them to ever be sane. You know what? Actually, New York's a great example of this. When Bill de Blasio was done and Eric Adams is going to get elected, who told you he's going to be just as big a disaster because that's the official position? He's not allowed to do anything, even if he didn't want to, even if he wanted to take a tougher stance on crime. He's not allowed to. Let's go to Joe Biden. Joe Biden's a scumbag, but maybe Joe Biden has been around long enough to understand the world, not America, the world runs on oil and gas. Everything you see, including your solar panels, they either needed oil and or gas to make it or transport it. It's an important ingredient in it. The entire world runs on it. But the official position of the Democratic Party in the United States of America is oil and gas are hurting the planet and they must be eliminated, which is beyond insane. But that's the official plan. Now, when you declare war on oil and gas, because the planet runs on oil and gas, you are declaring war on humanity itself. That is a declaration of war on life itself. I am underselling it when I am underselling it when I tell you these climate change people will kill 1 billion people. I get people write in and say, Jesse, the number's a lot higher than that. I know. I picked 1 billion because it's a nice round number. It could be 3 billion, 4 billion. We're talking the biggest genocide in the history of the world because it's war on everything. Look out your window right now. Everything you see, every single thing needed oil and gas along the way. Joe Biden gets elected. He is beholden to this insane genocidal climate change movement, and he immediately cuts off the Keystone Pipeline, cuts off all these oil and gas leases on federal land. He just gets elected, and he shoots the oil and gas industry in America in the knee. We're no longer energy independent. Gas prices start going up and up and up and up. Now, here's the thing. Maybe you're sitting there listening to the sound of my voice, and maybe you believe in man-made climate change. Maybe I would say that's an insane stance, but maybe you believe it. I mean, it's certainly the stance that's being pushed everywhere, so I understand if you believe it. You can't turn around without somebody whining to you about carbon in the atmosphere. So, okay, let's say that's your stance. Maybe that's your stance. Fine. I'll give you that for now. Let me just hand it to you. Okay, all right, yeah, man-made climate change. Oil ruining the earth. You do understand that no matter what your stance on it is, that if you choose to take away your nation's ability to produce oil and gas, to produce the things your nation runs on, you now are entirely dependent on nations that might hate your guts. They might get mad at you. They might not. But let's do it this way. You know what being broken on the wheel looks like? Hold on, Chris. I can get a little morbid. It's my show. Hold on. You know what being broken on the wheel is? You've probably heard the term in the past. He was broken on the wheel. It was a horrible punishment back in the day. They would put you on a wheel, strap you on a wheel, spread eagled with your arms up above your head. And so your arms and legs are stretched out. And they would put you on a wheel because the gaps in between the spokes were necessary. Why? Because they would strap you down to the wheel in public, and then they would take a gigantic sledgehammer and they would smash all of your limbs to bits before killing you. I know, it's gruesome, right? Now, when you choose as a nation to stop your oil and gas production, I'm not saying you are volunteering to be broken on the wheel, but you are laying down on the wheel, you are handing the sledgehammer to someone over you, and then you are strapping your arms and legs to the wheel. They may choose to start swinging, or they may choose to not, but you have chosen that position for yourself. You did that to yourself. So Joe Biden thought he was just going to hop across the pond and go talk to these people in Saudi Arabia. Hey, don't worry, guys. I'm going to take care of this whole thing. The Saudis, they're going to straighten themselves out. They're going to start producing more oil. Remember, that's what he said. He was going to go over there, and they were going to produce more oil. That's what he got on camera and said. The Saudis today said, Joe, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. You wanted us to produce more? Because this was back when they said they were going to produce 1 million barrels a day less. 1 million barrels a day less. And he was so mad about that and desperate about that, he went over there and said, no. I needed to produce more. You know what they said today? Joe, maybe you haven't heard, but...
freedom is not free.
And we have the freedom here at OPEC to do whatever we want. So we're actually going to produce 2 million barrels of oil a day less than we have been. Again, maybe you believe in man-made climate change. That's fine. I think that's insane. I think you're insane, but that's fine. I'm friends with all kinds of insane people. But it doesn't matter whether you believe in it or don't believe in it. You had better acknowledge this reality. Every single thing on the planet is about to get much more expensive and much more scarce. So believe it, don't believe it. It doesn't matter what you think about it or what I think about it. The truth is, life itself is about to get brutally expensive, which brings me to this little point, because we get to make these gigantic points tonight. And yes, I'm going to get to it. I think it's adorable when New York calls for federal immigration enforcement. Now I think that's great. I'll get to all that and much more still to come, but you better understand this point, and you better understand it really well. These people, they're not slowing down and they're not backing off. Joe Biden knew gas prices were going to go skyrocketing again. He knew gas prices were killing Democrats at the midterms. So on top of everything else, he chose to drain our strategic oil reserve, which is at the lowest level since 1982 now. He has drained it completely, only to short-term mitigate Democrat losses at the midterm. The president of the United States of America drained our oil supply that we need to keep the entire nation running. He drained it for a couple seats in the House. That's how truly evil these people are. That's the evil of what we're dealing with here. We are dealing with anti-humans. And so I just want to reinforce this again. Maybe you're like me and you have come to the understanding that this whole man-made climate change thing is absurd, that there's nothing you're doing that's changing the climate of the planet God made. Or maybe you're a nutball who's been educated in America's schools and you actually genuinely think that SUV you're driving somehow changes hurricanes. Maybe that's you. But the thing is, with this, it doesn't matter. Either you start drilling for oil and gas now, or that person you've handed the sledgehammer to, he just might choose to start swinging. And I don't know if you've noticed, but OPEC just announced today, I'm in the mood to swing a sludge for a little bit. And they're going to hit you, everything in your life. All right. So after that bright and sunny opening, let's get to something else they're saying about all this. And Klaus Schwab, and I love it that Kathy Hochul, we need border security. Oh, okay, all that and more still to come. Let's get to an email first. Jesse, I just ordered my 6 pounds of shrimp, he's saying, from Biloxi Shrimp. I love their website and company story. Tons of great recipes. I forgot to tell you about the recipes. I love buying from American companies and entrepreneurs who make a better product than the big box store Chi-Com crap. Look, I get emails every day now about Biloxi Shrimp. 95% of the shrimp you consume, that I've consumed, I'm guilty too, it comes from overseas. Why do you think Biloxi Shrimp tastes so much better? It comes from right there in the Mississippi Gulf with American shrimp boats, American workers, an American company. We must look to our own now. So talk about putting your money where your morals are. And it's not like you're making a sacrifice. It's better shrimp. BiloxiShrimpCo.com. Promo code Jesse gets you 10% off. BiloxiShrimpCo.com. Promo Jesse.
Is he smarter than everyone? Who knows? Does he think so? Yeah. The Jesse Kelly Show.
It is the Jesse Kelly Show. And look, you remember, this is just back in July. Old Papa Joe went over. He was going to handle those Saudis.
And I'm doing all I can to increase the supply for the United States of America, which I expect to happen. The Saudis share that urgency. And based on our discussions today, I expect we'll see further steps in the coming weeks.
That's funny. They don't appear to share that urgency at all. By the way, I should note, I have a heartbreaking letter I'm going to read, an email I got to the show. You know you can email the show, jesse@jessekellyshow.com. About 20 or 30 minutes from now, I'm going to read this to you. It's a COVID story. A story about something horrible that happened to somebody because of our insane COVID lockdowns. You can always send these to me. I'm never going to stop reading them on the air. I'm never going to get over what was done to this country. I mean, I joked about it at the very beginning of the show. Many New York City public school grads aren't ready for college. You know what this makes me reflect on when I look at this highlight? I remember the email. I got an email this one time to the show about a special needs kid who he was nonverbal. He was just so special needs that he was nonverbal, and it took a long time for him to be able to communicate verbally at all. But he spent so much time in this special needs program that he was finally able to communicate verbally. He was finally able to achieve it. Think how wonderful that must have been for him and his family and all that struggle. And then COVID came, a disease that was no danger to him whatsoever. COVID came, and they yanked him out of school and shut down the program. And now he's lost his ability to verbally communicate, and he has aged out of the program. I think about this a lot. I think about the fact we just took that away from him. We took that away from his family. I think about all the emails I get about Jesse, my kid's suicidal. Jesse, I fell back into drug abuse. Jesse, I fell into alcoholism. Jesse, we lost my business. Jesse, I couldn't bury my aunt. And I'm never going to stop talking about it. I'm never going to get over what was done to this nation. And I'll tell you something else I'm not going to do. I'm not going to let anybody who did these things get away with we didn't know, because they did know. That's a lie. They did this on purpose. And you know they knew because they were always caught violating the COVID measures they told you to take. That doesn't make them hypocrites. People told these lies over and over and over again. That's a hypocrite. It's a hypocrite. Nancy Pelosi with their hair. Andrew Cuomo, wear a mask, stay away. And then he gets photographed at a fundraiser hugging somebody while shaking his hand with no mask on. And everyone, because this is all conservatism has ever been, it's a hypocrite. What a hypocrite. He's hypocritical. It wasn't hypocritical. If I told you there were landmines on the front lawn and then you saw me walking across the front lawn, you wouldn't say Jesse's a hypocrite. You would say Jesse's a liar. You would say Jesse lied to me about the landmines. They did this to our stuff. They wrecked us on purpose. I'm tempted to read this now, but I'm not going to. I'm going to have to gear myself up for it. We're going to get to Doug Mastriano and a bunch of stuff before we get to that. You know what? Let's talk about something better. Let's talk about Giza Dream Sheets. Let's talk about a good night's sleep. There are three things, remember. Three things you never cheat yourself on, ever. Anything that goes on your feet. Buy quality shoes and socks. You never cheat yourself on your tires. Not saying you have to buy the most expensive tires there are. Get good tires. The life of yourself and other people on the road depend on those bad boys. And your bedding. You spend 1/3 of your life in bed. If you're Michael, that's half your life. Giza Dream Sheets, they make it better. They're the most incredible sheets ever. I have people how many emails have you gotten about sheets? People email me. They text me about their Giza Dream Sheets. They're back to being their lowest price ever. 60% off. You can get a set as low as $39.99. So it's time to go get 2 sets of Giza Dream Sheets. I say 2 so you can have one on your bed while the other's in the wash. Go to mypillow.com. Click on the radio listener specials. Use the promo code Jesse. That's what gets you 60% off. Take advantage of it when they have these massive deals. Get a couple sets. mypillow.com, promo code Jesse. Or call 800-845-0544. All right. Just a couple more things on this oil stuff. Joe Biden went down to Florida today, and this will never stop being despicable to me. We talk about it a lot, how they'll stand on dead bodies in the wake of a mass shooting in politics. You remember? Beto O'Rourke did it after the Uvalde school shooting. Kathy Hochul couldn't wait to stand on the dead bodies in the Buffalo supermarket once they were all shot. The President of the United States today, without hesitation, got on his plane and flew down and surveyed the destruction that was once people's lives. And this is what he had to say.
Colorado River looks more like a stream. There's a lot going on. And I think the one thing this has finally ended is a discussion about whether or not there's climate change and we should do something about it.
Who thinks like that? What kind of a human being stands in? Have you ever seen the aftermath of a flood? The destruction a flood leaves? Have you ever seen somebody standing in their home in 2 feet of water in what used to be their living room or kitchen, losing their home completely, losing everything? People don't have money to just rebuild. Oh, insurance. Insurance never makes you whole, not even close to it. But imagine how cold you have to be to go stand in floodwaters and tell the people who've just lost it all, well, at least we can end the debate on climate change, right, Bob? And these people suck. All right, we're going to talk to Doug Mastriano. Why should you move to that red state? I love it here. Okay. Hang on, you'll find out why. It is the Jesse Kelly Show, and how long have I been telling you to get out, get to a red state? And what do I say? What do I say when I say get to a red area? Why? Well, a bunch of different reasons, your basic happiness and things like that, but because you need some level of state protection that is no longer ever going to come from the federal level. Every citizen, every Republican, Democrat, Independent, we need protection from a federal government that has gotten way too corrupt. Joining me now, somebody I'm really, really impressed with. I really hope he wins. Doug Mastriano. He is running for governor in the state of Pennsylvania. He's also a veteran, even though it was Army. I'm not going to hold that against him. Doug, I've continued to implore governors and AGs in the states to do more to protect their citizens, especially when we see things like what the FBI is doing now. And I love that you've been willing to speak out against that.
Thank you for having me on. And there's a lot of good that governors can do. And I actually have legislation in the Senate that's been introduced for some months that would prohibit any illegal enforcement of the Second Amendment violations from the Biden administration. What we saw in Berks County, not too far from Philly, a couple of weeks ago, with the pro-life, Catholic family, Mark Houck. I mean, they would send 30 agents and 15 cars. I mean, that's like a night raid in Afghanistan. You don't do that to American citizens.
You don't do it, and I'm glad you spoke out against it, because this is a man who volunteered, told the FBI, hey, if you want me, I'll come down. So the only reason you then wait and send 30 agents to his house and stick rifles in his face is if you're trying to politically intimidate him and others. And it's one thing if some dirtball on the street corner, Doug, wants to intimidate me or you or normal families. It's another thing entirely if that's the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
It's very chilling. And when you have the forces of the Department of Justice behind it, clearly politicized and weaponized by Merrick Garland. And maybe those memos they sent out about parents being domestic terrorists at school board meetings, maybe he meant it. Maybe Joe Biden, when he gave his speech in Philadelphia, he meant it. And so, I'm talking about a few things. First off, on our side here, please don't do anything stupid. I get a feeling that the left is looking for an excuse, from somebody for overreacting. So comply and do whatever they say. But in the end, let's have the last say on November 8th. So if you're tired of the overreach and abuse of power and intimidation and bully tactics, you got to get out and vote, and maybe even help out a candidate that's standing for your freedoms instead of just waving your fist at the TV.
Doug, I tell people to move a lot, and I tell them to move so they can have protection, as I already said. When I talk to friends of mine in New York, I tell them, look, I love New York too. I love walking through the city. I have a blast. I just got back from there. Man, the way this is going, it's not like they're about to hit some bottom in New York and then turn this around and all of a sudden restore the freedom to the people. I feel like it's going down a really dark path, and we have to go to places like Pennsylvania and then fortify it. Don't you agree?
We have to defend our freedoms, and we have to have legislators, in the House and Senate, in our case here, and a governor and an attorney general that respects the Constitution. For me, any irony is not lost on me. For my opponent, he's the attorney general, and on his watch, crime has gone up almost 40% in 6 years. He can't run on his record. We're the fourth highest in fentanyl deaths. We got 1,000 cars in Philadelphia this year alone. I mean, the guy's a failure. He does not stand for law and order.
You mentioned fentanyl deaths, and I'm glad you did, because this gets covered up, I'm sure, because it comes across the southern border by the national media. But working class towns across America, I grew up in Ohio, very familiar with Pennsylvania. Working class towns across America have been wiped out by this fentanyl crisis. The deaths are through the roof, and it just gets completely either ignored or flat out covered up, and it is the saddest freaking thing in the world.
And just so people know the connection, which you do cover on your show, of course, fentanyl, it tends to be produced in China, and then it's exported to America. It comes across the southern border, and now we're looking at 100,000 deaths last year. That's almost more than twice that we had in 10 years in Vietnam. I mean, it's a plague. Something needs to be done about it. Every state is now a border state. Families are suffering, and the Democrats don't seem to care.
No, they don't seem to care. Or when they pretend to care, Doug, we get these vague things. Like I was making fun of her earlier today. New York Governor Kathy Hochul said we need a federal solution to the border crisis. But she doesn't mean a wall. She doesn't mean more agents. She doesn't mean deporting people. They just throw out these vague terms like they give a crap. They never give a crap.
Yeah, it's kind of like in 1984, Orwellian newspeak. You say something that means something that's complete that is opposite. On our side here, I'd be happy to support the mission on the border with my National Guard if a border state, asks for that kind of help. It's that serious for me. My wife and I were just in Kensington in Philadelphia on Friday, and that's the only open-air market for drugs in the nation. And it's so heartbreaking what's going on there. And there's real families that we spoke with that want help. They don't want political stunts. We didn't go with any cameras, unlike other candidates. We want answers, and we need to be a law and order state. When Philadelphia is bleeding. The founding city of our nation here is a terrible place to visit now because of crime. I mean, something needs to be done about it. And we need to reclaim Philadelphia as well as all of Pennsylvania.
You didn't bring cameras along? Don't you understand you're supposed to be a politician that films every single act of charity you do and throws it online and acts like it's an accident?
That's just the problem. I'm not a politician. I'm a retired Army colonel. I'm just an average citizen that really cares about my state, and I hope to turn it over to the next generation a little bit better off than it is right now.
Again, I'm speaking with Doug Mastriano, running for governor in the great state of Pennsylvania. Doug, federally, I do not like saying this at all because it brings me no joy. I love my country, as I know you do. Federally, it's very difficult if you're being honest with yourself, seeing how this corrupt of a system can find its way again. That's why I'm so adamant about states and people moving and protecting their state and becoming activists in their state. But is that me being too cynical? Do I consume too much of the news? Are we just about to turn things around?
Actually, we're in a dark place, and I do appreciate, how people, and I at times, in the privacy of my home, despair too of the things that are going on. I never imagined that we'd see the Department of Justice, weaponized against its citizens in such obvious ways, or, a president standing in front of a national shrine, Independence Hall, and calling half of America, basically his political enemies.
Oof.
But I do believe the people of Pennsylvania and the people of America, you have a choice. This is still a constitutional republic here. You get to choose what this country and our freedoms look like. So if you're going to stand aside, please don't complain anymore because you're part of the problem. Get up and vote. Do something. Donate to a candidate. People like me, I'm fueled and funded by just average Americans from across America, and we have donations coming in from across the nation. People are aware how critical this election is, so do something about it. Do something positive about it.
Do something about it. Doug, if people want to support you, how do they do that?
Thank you. Go to doug4gov.com. That's Doug4gov.com and help us out.
Doug4gov.com. I like that because it's so simple, even I can remember it. Doug, thank you. Good luck. I hope you win.
Thank you. We are going to win. Thank you, brother.
Good man. Good man. That's why I tell you to move. I thought you should hear it. Don't you want somebody like that to be standing in between an out-of-control federal government and you? Unless we start changing, this is the thing. We don't have an opposition party. We haven't had one for quite some time. We have a bunch of go-along losers. If we don't start changing what the GOP looks like and changing the GOP mentality, then we're never, ever, ever going to be able to take this place back. You need protection. I need protection. I'm not as powerful as the DOJ. I know that I am a famous author, so that obviously helps a lot. But I'm not at the DOJ. All right, that's enough. That's enough. We have I have an awful thing to read you. It is a heartbreaking thing to read you. I will ask that you listen to it anyway, though. I don't want to read it. I think it is important we listen and we hear, because we deserve to hear from people. The people who've been punished in this place, they deserve to be heard, because that's the only way they'll ever get any justice. So just buckle up for this one in a second. Before we get to them, let's get to Tunnel to Towers. Tunnel to Towers, right after 9/11, wanted to do something good. Do good. That's what their mission is. Do good. And they have done so much good. It is such an honor to be associated, in even the small way I am, with the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, because we have been giving a command to take care of widows and orphans. Take care of widows and orphans. Not the government, you and me. Tunnel to Towers does that. They come alongside these widows of dead first responders, widows of veterans who died overseas, and they pay off their mortgage for them. They're building them an entire village for just them to live and heal in Florida. It's just awesome. And all they ask us for is $11 a month. $11? You got $11. Go to T2T.org. T2T.org.
Jesse Kelly. Back soon.
It is the Jesse Kelly Show on a Wednesday. Don't forget, you can email the show, jesse@jessekellyshow.com, jesse@jessekellyshow.com. Before I get to this gut-wrencher of an email, I do want to remind you of this. There are going to be a lot more desperate people in the times to come. We've talked about the oil prices and what that means and what that's going to mean for everybody. But when economic times get rough, the number of desperate people willing to do bad things, violent things, it only goes up. Maybe you're not into guns. Okay, fine. Look, I wish you were, but maybe you're not into guns. Maybe you are into guns and you'd like some sort of a non-lethal supplement. Maybe your daughter isn't into guns. Your son, whatever the case may be. Carry something on your person at all times that will allow you to stop a bad person from hurting you, because the number of bad people who want to hurt you is going to go up as things get worse and worse out there. Get a hero gun. Look, I'm a gun guy and I have a hero gun all the time. Why? I love having a non-lethal option. Maybe you don't like guns at all. Oh, they're scary. Fine. A hero gun shoots pepper balls 100 miles per hour. They explode on contact, and it'll stop them. Believe me, it's debilitating. Or get the little hero arrow, which I love. It's a little bit smaller. It shoots a gel blast, but it'll save your life. It's already saved lives. Does not require a concealed carry permit either. And you can even keep not being a gun guy. That's fine. Go to hero2020.com. Code Jesse gets you a special discount. Hero2020.com, code Jesse. State restrictions may apply. Now, I brought up the schools. New York City public school grads, they aren't ready for college. Of course, they can't read anymore. Weren't doing that great to begin with. Their writing's worse than their reading. Math grades suck because we yanked kids out of schools and we threw masks on their faces and told them they had to learn through Zoom. We treated them like trash, and all that is terrible. It is awful. What we've done to young people is awful. But some of the worst stories come into my email, and I'll tell you, I almost didn't even read this one, but I thought that, you know what, that's not fair. That's not right. This person deserves to have their story told. So here it is. Dear Jesse, the subject, by the way, is grandson taken by COVID negligence. Dear Jesse, 1 year ago today, my buddy was taken from us by the gross negligence and absolute ineptitude of doctors at our children's hospital. My son and daughter-in-law brought him in on Sunday morning with a high fever, elevated heart rate, and extreme irritability. They did a COVID test and a chest x-ray and sent him home after a couple hours. A few hours later, he was not improving and extremely irritated. People often say this about their child, but this little boy was the easiest little guy, always smiling and happy. My daughter-in-law knew something was wrong, so they went back to the children's hospital ER. Again, they missed all the obvious cues and sent him home, telling my son that if his fever and heart rate stayed elevated for more than some designated amount of time, to come back. Jesse, my son called me at 5 a.m. Monday morning, October 4th, 2021, his voice desperate. Quote, Daddy, he stopped breathing. He died on his way back to the hospital for a third time in less than 24 hours. That was the most helpless I've ever been, to lose our precious little grandson and to fail my son at the same time. This was a failure of doctors blinded by COVID. They missed all the obvious signs of the bacterial infection in his blood that killed that innocent little baby boy. Please don't go back on your promise to never let this go until we have that reckoning. Sitting there holding his cold, bruised, lifeless body, Jesse, these people need to be locked up for what they did to us. Say his name. His name was Warner. Rest in peace, Warner. If you have COVID stories of loss and pain for what these people did to you over a virus virtually everyone survives, I want you to know you can still email me those stories, jesse@jessekellyshow.com, jesse@jessekellyshow.com. I've done entire episodes on them before. I'm never going to let it go. What happened to you was not justice. What happened to you was not right. What happened to you was criminal. It was not negligence. It wasn't accidental. They didn't screw something up. These people wrecked you on purpose. And oh yes, doctors were involved. The stories I have from doctors and nurses who were emailing me about the things they were seeing from their colleagues would horrify you. Doctors, nurses, the public health institutions in this country, FDA, CDC, Fauci, all these scumbag governors. Andrew Cuomo killed 15,000 freaking people, and he didn't get anything but run out of the governor's mansion, and it wasn't even for that. There has to be a reckoning. And the reason I say there has to be a reckoning isn't just because I'm so angry I want to punch somebody out right now. I want a reckoning because unless these people are thrown in handcuffs, publicly humiliated, and financially ruined before going to federal prison for the rest of their lives, unless that happens, they're going to do it again and again and again and again without end because they have no incentive not to. When you're dealing with anti-human monsters who will kill without a second thought, the only way to dissuade them is punishment. I mean, I just brought up Cuomo. Wrap your mind around this. How bad would you feel? God forbid this ever happens, but let's say tonight you're on the way home. Your phone rings or something like that. You look down at your phone real quick and someone runs out in front of you and boom, 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 you run them over and you kill them. You'd want to die, right? How overwhelmed with guilt would you feel if you were personally responsible for the death of even one innocent human being? Andrew Cuomo murdered 15,000 of his own citizens in New York. There's never even been a hint of regret or an apology. Nothing. When I call these people monsters and demons, you may think that's over the top. I'm underselling it. If you can murder 15,000 people and not have even the slightest amount of remorse, I don't know what you are. I don't know what you classify as, but you're not a human being. You're not human anymore. You were at one point in time, but all the things that were human inside of you, they're clearly gone at this point. All right, we got to get off this stuff. It grosses me out. Let's talk about Scooby-Doo. Let's say, you know what? Forget that. Let's talk about something that makes me feel good. Because I got a headline today, and I saw it, and you ever see that movie, The Grinch, where he does that slow smile that consumes his whole face? That's what happened to me when I read this headline. You ready to feel good about something? And then we'll go back to talking about all the crappy stuff? Good. We're about to. Hang on.